Yah, Rumamu Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, who is Yahusha. Shabbat Shalom, beloved family. All esteem to our great King, Rumamu Yahuwah, Tuda, Tuda, Yahuwah. Tuda, Tuda, Yahuwah, Tuda, Tuda. We enter through your gates with Tuda, with thanksgiving, and into your courts with a praise. Rumamu Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Abba Yah, for another day. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to see another Shabbat. You, Ruma, Mu, Yahuwah. Thank you, Father. Thank you. Barak Yahuwah. Thank you. Welcome, welcome, everyone, to another Shabbat studies, Barak Yahuwah. And this one is definitely about the Shabbat, on the Shabbat, Ruma, Mu, Yahuwah. As you can see, the title says, do's and don'ts on the Shabbat Yom, or on the Shabbat day, Barak Yahuwah. Now, in this lesson, in this breakdown, we'll be going over just a few things. I did go over the Shabbat in one of my previous videos, but that was regarding, one particular topic. But in this one, I'm going over two additional topics as well, Barak Yahuwah. So to show you and give you guys a better understanding of the Shabbat, what to do and what not to do. What to do and what not to do on the Shabbat. You do's and don'ts of it. All right. So what are we supposed to do? Like, what's okay, what's not okay, what's lawful, what's not. Because throughout time, those who are not of Yahuwah tries to tell us what to do and what not to do, try to tell us what's okay and what's not okay. And for that reason, they have given us some instructions or commands that have been burdensome to some people, especially in certain areas, certain locations. And you'll see what I mean. You'll definitely see what I mean. And we know Yahuwah says his commands are not, burdensome. They're not heavy. They're not burdensome. They're not heavy. Just like how the commands that he has given us, people try to say, man, that's a lot. 613 commands. That's a lot. That's too much. That's too much work. But yet, if you should ask majority right now, are you a law-abiding citizen? Majority will say yes. And if you should go and look up all the laws that are in your country, whether you're in Jamaica, whether you're in the United States, whether you're in the UK, whether you're in Canada or anywhere else in the world, go look up how much laws are in your country and look at how much laws you are keeping. It's far greater than 600. Even if it's 1,000 laws that you have in your country, that's still 300 plus more than 613. So if you can keep 1,000 laws, 10,000 laws, 30,000 laws, if you can keep that, because remember, you said you're a law-abiding citizen, which means you don't break these laws. If you can keep those, then you can keep 613. Because just like those laws, some laws don't speak to you. Because if you are not in possession of a licensed firearm, right? Those laws, the gun laws, don't speak to you. If you don't own a business laws don't speak to you. So automatically you're gonna keep it. You can't break something that you don't have. How can I break a glass when I don't have a glass? There's an instruction that comes on the packaging. Careful, fragile is really fragile. How can I break it if I don't have it? So I can break a gun law when I don't own a gun. I can't break a business law when I don't own a business. I can't break a car law or a motor vehicle law if I don't own a motor vehicle. You get what I'm saying? So those you would already keep automatically. It's the same thing with Yah's commands. If you're not a priest, how can you break the priestly laws? If you don't have farms, if you don't have servants, how can you break all these laws? So think about that, Barak Yahuwah. But it's man. Man made it seem as if it was impossible to keep the Most High's law. But it's not impossible to keep their laws and instructions. I don't even like to say law, really. I love saying instructions because that's what Torah means, instructions. Laws are rules that are given by a governing state. And if you break one, there should be a punishment. With Yahuwah's instructions, if you accidentally break one, he will give you a chance. If you break one by accident, he'll give you a chance. It's not all the time he's going to punish you and all that stuff, especially if it's your first offense, or if he sees the heart that you truly didn't mean it. But if you keep on doing it, though, then he's going to have to, punish you, teach you, so you can learn not to do it again. But with a law, when you break it, even if it's your first offense, even if you didn't mean it, even if you didn't intended to, you will be punished, prosecuted by the courts, judge, whoever, king, whoever. So I don't like saying law regarding Yahuwah's instruction, because his instructions are not law. Go look up the word law for yourself. Look at the definition of law. Look at the definition of instructions, and you will see the difference. So I would like to dive into some of Yah's instructions that for so long we have been misled, we have been mistaught by man. And I know a particular religion that have some of these instructions misinterpreted, mistaught, misguided to, whatever you want to say. I know a particular religion right now that this speaks to exactly, because they are extreme when it comes on to this and the Shabbat Yom. And you already know who I'm talking, the Seventh-day Adventists. So, Barak Yahuwah, as you can see on the screen, I'm at Shamut, or as they falsely call it, Exodus 35. And we're going to read from verse 1 to 3. And the first one that we're going to look at is, can you light a fire on the Shabbat Yom? Now, in verse 1, it reads, and Masha gathered all the assembly of the children of Yasharal together, and said unto them, these are the words which Yahuwah has commanded you, that you should do them. 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day, or Yom, there shall be to you a Kadash, a separated day, a Shabbat of rest to Yahuwah. Whosoever does work therein shall be put to death. Now, verse 3, it says, you shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Shabbat. All right, so we're going to stop right there, because remember, we're speaking about fire. Can you kindle, light a fire? Kindle means to light. Can you kindle, light, or make a fire on the Shabbat Yom? Now, with these scriptures, most people just state this right here. And again, I keep on saying to everyone, and Yahuwah says this, Yahuwah expressed this, line upon line upon line, precept upon precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Context is very important when studying Yah's scripture. If you just go by one verse or two verse, then you might take it literal. Like, let's just say we only read verse 3. We didn't go anywhere else to read anything else. We didn't read verse 2 or anything else. We're just working with verse 3. And if you just work with verse 3 only, then it could seem that way, where you can't light no fire whatsoever, make no heat or anything whatsoever, no fire, no burning, no nothing, period. It doesn't matter. Full stop, end. Just like how in Acts 10, where in religion, they took Acts 10 from a few verses where Yahuwah gave Kappa a dream about animals and told him to eat. And they took those few verses and say, see, Yahuwah told Peter to eat all kind of things, all kind of animals, pigs, pork, shellfish, snails, whatever. But they didn't read the verses afterwards to see what was the context of that dream. Was it a parable? Was it a message, a hidden message that Yahuwah was trying to give him? So because of those simple verses that they took only, that's where they go and break and defile Yahuwah's instruction, because of one or two verses. We can't do that. That's what they did in religion. We cannot do that today in the truth. We need to learn from our mistakes, learn from our ancestors' mistakes. So right here, there are those in the Seventh-day Adventists, and there are those in the truth as well, that believes no fire whatsoever, no form of heat as well, should be kindled or made on the Shabbat day. And when I say no form of heat, we know today we have air fryers and we have microwaves and different form of stuff where you don't see any flames, electric stoves and all that stuff. So persons will say, when it says fire, it's also, what does fire produce? Heat. So no heat, no microwave, no electric stoves, no air fryer, none of that stuff. I've heard it. I've heard persons who say they are in the truth share these beliefs. No, Barak Yahuwah, Ruma Mu Yahuwah. No, I'm going to show you something in one of the final verses that I've been looking at is Jubilees 50. I'm going to show you something, but I want you guys to think about something right here. Now, let me ask those who believe that, or those who were taught that, and think about this. Do you think Yahuwah would allow his people to froze to death? Because what about persons who are in places like Alaska, which are freezing temperatures, below degrees temperatures, below 0 degrees temperatures we're talking about, like 30 minus degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius, and all those stuff. Would you really believe Yahuwah would want his people to froze to death? And then instead of having their full strength on the Shabbat day, they're freezing. So how can they give esteem when they're struggling, when they're weak and all that stuff? Because I've heard persons to say as well, you can't use heater on the Shabbat as well. You can't turn your heater on because remember, they said no heat. So no microwave, no air fryers, no electric stove, and no form of heat. No form of heat. Yahuwah is not the author of confusion. Yahuwah would never be telling his people not to keep themselves warm, not to protect their lives. That's basically Yahuwah telling them to commit suicide. That's what Yahuwah would be doing, telling his people to commit suicide. And Yahuwah would not do that. No, what we need to understand when it says don't kindle a fire on the Shabbat, throughout your inhabitations, you need to understand what was the requirement of making a fire during those days. Comparing especially to today. Now, for those who might not know, back in the day, things weren't so advanced as it is today, or technical as it is today, or a little bit easier in some ways. Like, in order to make a fire today, it's easy, it's simple. We got a lot of resources to make the job easier. Like, if you want to go outside and light a regular fire, you got a lighter, you got kerosene, gasoline, stuff like that. It's a lot quicker and a lot easier. Just one stroke, boom, you have fire. Back in the old time days, our ancestors did not have that. It took them a while to make fire. It took a lot of work to make fire. Now, in order to make a campfire, they need wood. So you would need to go into the forest, find wood, bring it back to camp. You need to either find wood that's lying on the ground or chop down a few trees. And then bring it back to camp. And then when you bring it back to camp, you got to chop it up. And after chopping it up, you got to place it in the particular order. Then after doing that, then you got to get a swindle, type of drill that uses to make spark or burning. You get the ashes from that. Once it's burning, you get the ashes from it, and you place it on some very light and flammable materials. And then you blow it. You blow it and you blow it and you blow it until there's fire. Then you place it on the bigger part of the fire, and you continue to work, blow it or fan it until everything is engulfed in fire. You can go look up videos regarding how to make a fire survival videos. Go look it up for yourself. If you're stranded on a desert island or whatever, and you have no lighter, no matches, go look up how to make a fire, and you'll see how much work it requires. Now remember, listen to verse 2. Yahuwah says, no work shall be done on the Shabbat day. Now, do you see why Yahuwah would not tell you to light a fire on the Shabbat day? Because it will take work. It will take time to make, especially depending on the size of the fire, especially on the size and the amount of fire that you would need to make. You probably need to make one, to one big one to keep you warm, and then probably make another one to cook on and all that stuff. You get what I'm saying? So it depends as well. So it took a lot of work, it took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, time that you could be spending with Yahuwah. Today, we don't have to work that hard. One stroke with a match or a lighter, boom, we have fire instantly. Instantly, we have a fire. Or one turn of a knob and we have fire. We turn the electric stove on, boom, we got heat. We press a button, we got heat from the heater. So we don't need to make a fire. We don't need to go into the woods, chop trees down or look woods, bring it back, because they're heavy as well. That's a burden. You got to carry the heavy load back to camp. Then you got to work again to chop them up to get to be the right size, because you cannot just light a tree like that. You got to chop it up, and it requires work as well. Then you got to work to get the spark to ignite the fire. And if that out, you got to start all over. I'm telling you, go look up how to make a fire with your hand, or a drill, a fire drill, like smoke drill that they had to swindle. I don't remember the name, a bow drill. They call it a bow drill. Go look it up. It takes time. I've seen that guy tried 3 efforts. In the second effort, he got smoke, but then it went out, and he had to start all over again, trying. And it took a lot of work, because they were having a bow drill competition, and it didn't work for him in the end. So it takes time, it takes effort. Now, our ancestors, they would know, how to make it. They would make sure they would get that fire, but still, it takes work. So today's life, we can just press a button, turn a knob, one stroke of a match, or one stroke turn of a lighter, one push of a button on the lighter, and we instantly have fire. Instantly, we got heat. It doesn't require us to leave our homes or anything of the sort. So it doesn't take no time, no effort whatsoever from us today to make a fire, to generate heat. Again, context is key. Context is key. Now, persons in the truth, I say they are in the truth, and persons in religion like the Seventh-day Adventists believe we should not do any of these, because, heat is fire, with our microwave or heat and all the stuff. And again, as I said, what about those in Alaska? What about when it's winter time? Are you saying that we are supposed to stay in the cool, freezing, in risk of catching hypothermia and all this stuff? Too weak to praise and esteem Yahuwah. Yahuwah is not the author of confusion. Then when you make your food on preparation day and it's freezing cold, your food is going to be freezing cold. How would you eat a frozen fruit? Tell me that. Again, persons like in Alaska, things freeze and quickly. So even if they cook on preparation day, and remember, they're going to put down, some of the food for the next day, that food would be frozen for the Shabbat daylight. That food will be frozen. So what would they eat then? They would need to preheat that food to get it back to our right temperature first, so that they can consume it. Because, eating a cool food is not okay for your stomach, especially when you might be having a little gas issue and all that stuff. So for those in really, really, really low temperatures, where they don't need a deep freeze or a fridge to get things cool or frozen, how would they eat after making their foods on preparation day? How would they eat it the next day, like when it's frozen, rock solid? That's what I would love for anyone who believes against this. Explain that to me. Do you see how burdensome you're making the Shabbat? You're not making it joyful. You're not making it a joyful day. You're adding confusion to it because you misunderstood this right here, verse 3. Because you didn't read verse 2. You didn't look into how our ancestors made fire back then. You got to do all these calculations to understand why Yahuwah would say this. Why not make a fire? Ask Yahuwah, and he will tell you why. Why, Yahuwah? Why should we not make a fire? I want to understand Yahuwah so I can share it with others. And he will explain it to you. It's not like Yahuwah is going to kill you if you ask him a question. I remember when I was asking, some questions in religion, these different leaders and pastors and other members from different religions, different assemblies, they will tell you, don't question the Most High, don't question God. And I know I'm not the only person to have ever heard that. A lot of us have heard that. Why? Because they don't know how to answer the questions that we're asking. And they are too lazy or wicked to even seek it out. Yahuwah says, when you seek me with your whole heart, you shall find me. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the doors will be open unto you. So why are you telling me not to ask when the Most High is telling me to seek, to ask? Because they don't want to be exposed. That's why they don't want you to ask. So it's simple. All you got to do, if you have a relationship with the Most High, even if you don't, simply ask the Most High, why, Yahuwah? Why can I not light a fire on the Shabbat? Yo, my food is frozen. I'm really, really cold. How do I get myself warm, Yahuwah? How do I eat my food that I made on preparation day? For prep day and for the Shabbat, how do I eat it today? He will explain to you the same way he did with me. Context is key. So I just wanted to break this down for those who have, gone through the Shabbat where you would not use a microwave to preheat the food that's already prepared. You're not cooking. Now listen, please don't get what I'm saying wrong. I'm not saying it's okay to cook on the Shabbat because you can light the stove. Remember, not to cook on the Shabbat day. Why? Cooking requires time and work. Cooking requires time and work, just like making a fire. Back in the days. Today, it's the same thing. Cooking requires a lot of time and work. Depending on what you're cooking, it can take an hour, it can take 2 hours, 3 hours, 4, 5. You know what I'm saying? Cooking requires time and effort. It also depends what you're cooking. It also depends how much mouth do you have to feed. It requires a lot of time and a lot of effort. And that's time that you're taking out of Yahuwah's day. Those 3, 4, 5, 6 hours that you're taking away, you could be spending with Yahuwah. And then after doing all of that, you're going to be tired, you're going to be drained. So no, you're sleeping longer than you should. So you spend hours cooking, you spend an hour preparing, you spend hours cooking, and now you're too tired, too sleepy to stay up or whatever. Now you got to spend hours sleeping again, taking the majority of the hours out of YAHUAH'S day. So cooking is a no on the Shabbat. But what I'm saying is the food that's already cooked, already prepared, you can preheat it in the daylight. Because remember, you would already cook it the day before, the preparation day. Sundown, while sun goes down, you would have that feast. You would eat and have your feast, your dinner in the night. And then now in the daylight, you would need to eat something as well. So whatever is left over, you would eat it as well. Remember when Yahuwah gave enough food for 2 days, just like the manna. Because a lot of persons thought manna came instantly made. Like all the people had to do was take up the manna and eat it. No, manna is not instantly made. Manna, you have to grind it. You have to grind it and then bake it and for it to become bread. That's why Yahuwah says, whatever you bake, bake for 2 days. He was talking to manna because manna is not an instant food supply or source or item that you can just eat right away. You have to grind it first, break it down, melt it into a powdery substance, then you bake it and it becomes a bread. So that's why Yahuwah says, what you bake today, bake for 2 days, bake enough so that the next day you would have enough food. And then if you notice, what did the people do in the daylight? They went out and they could not find any manna. Why? Because if Yahuwah gave them manna, they would go and grind it and then bake it on the Shabbat Yom. So he gave them enough meat, enough manna to last for 2 days. So cooking is a no-no on the Shabbat. Everyone. Don't do any cooking on the Shabbat. But as I'm saying, you can preheat your food on the Shabbat. That you have already made, you have already prepared. Barak Yahuwah Yahusha, Rumamu Yahuwah. No. Again, as I said, we're not supposed to work on the Shabbat. Right? Do no work and all that stuff. Carry any burden as well. We're at Exodus 31, verse 14. And Yahuwah says, "You shall guard the Shabbat, therefore, for it is Kadash unto you. Everyone that defiles it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever does any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days must work be done, but in the seventh is the Shabbat of rest, Kadash, separated unto Yahuwah. Whosoever does any work in the Shabbat, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Yasharal shall guard the Shabbat to do the Shabbat throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Yasharal forever. For in 6 days Yahuwah made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed." So we know we're not supposed to do any work or carry any burden on the Shabbat Yom. Now, why am I saying this? It's in regards to eating or picking fruits on the Shabbat Yom. Now, let's go to Jeremiah. Let's read Jeremiah 17 as well for you to see the burden one. Or Yaram Yahu, exaltation YAHUAH'S, Yaram Yahu 17, verse 19. Let's go down. All right, here we are. "Thus said Yahuwah unto me, Go and stand in the gate of the children of the people, whereby the kings of Yehudah come in, and by the which they go out, or by the way they go out, and in all the gates of Jerusalem, and say unto them, Hear ye the word of Yahuwah, you kings of Yehudah, Judah, and all Yehudah, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, that enter in by these gates. Thus says Yahuwah, Take heed to yourselves, and bear no burden on the Shabbat, nor bring it in by the gates of Jerusalem. Neither carry forth a burden out of your houses, and on the Shabbat, neither do you any work, but you shall make a Kadash unto Yahuwah. You shall make a Kadash, the Shabbat, the day of Shabbat, as I command your fathers. Have not to carry any burdens. What kind of burdens were they carrying out? They would carry burdens like, items for sale. So like if they do like make clothes or makes spoons, knife, or if they are farmers selling fruits, they would carry these heavy burdens, heavy loads. And they would carry it and bring it to the marketplace to sell and to make money. That's work. That was their job. So Yahuwah is saying not to do this. So let's jump to Matthew real quick. Barak Yahuwah. Remember, we had farmers back in the day that would go out into the fields and harvest their different crops, like wheat or grapes or whatever it is. So right here in Matthew 12, verse 1, it says, At that time, Yahusha went on the Shabbat through the fields, and his Talmudim were hungry and began to pluck the heads of grain and to eat. But the Pharisees saw it, and they said unto him, Behold, your Talmudim, your taught ones, do that which is not lawful or right to do upon the Shabbat. So they saw this act of picking the heads of grains on the Shabbat as work, as harvesting. That's what they saw it as. They saw it as work, as harvesting. And we know Yahuwah, deal with them on this matter. We're going to read it in a short while. We're going to read it shortly. No, as I said, some of our ancestors' occupations were farmers. No, their role was to go into the fields and to pick the heads of grains and, carry their basket. And then it will get full and it will get heavy and then they will take it back. Some, had, different animals like the ox or some other animals, donkeys, camel, to carry the load. So the man would not have to carry it. But again, you're making the animal work. So again, you're still taking a burden, whether you or your animal that is in your possession or your servant that is in your possession. So you would bring it back, and then after bringing it back, you would make seals with these crops, with your items. So they saw the disciples doing this, picking the grains, but were they bringing it home and all that stuff? They were picking it and eating it. And even if they brought it home to their families, they would not brought, heavy loads, because they're not trying to sell to a whole village. They're not bringing back loads for a whole village, a whole community. They're just bringing back, some amount of foods or grains, for themselves and their families to eat. So, were the disciples wrong in doing so, eating on the Shabbat? No, they weren't. Why? Because they were hungry. They were hungry and they saw the heads of grains and they picked it and they eat. Nothing is wrong in doing so. It's like if you're in a situation where you don't have any food, you didn't get the chance to make preservations for, the Shabbat, like to make food for the Shabbat, and you have a field. You can go out into your field and pick some fruits, whatever fruits you have in your possession that can be, eaten right away. Not things that you have to cook, you have to really prepare. But you can go out into the fields, pick those fruits, whether you have grapes, you have bananas, you have apples, whatever it is, and you can eat. That's not work. Eating is not working. So I don't understand today how some persons misunderstand this to see eating as working. And then this is probably one of the reasons why some people fast on the Shabbat Yom. And I'm going to go to that scripture as well regarding fasting as well, because I did break it down in another video, but I'm going to go over it again with all this explanation. So is picking fruits on the Shabbat day to eat work? No, it's not. As long as you're not picking the fruits to sell it. If you are picking the fruits to sell it, it might not be that day, but the next day. If your motive, your intention of picking the fruit is to sell it, you might eat some, but then the rest you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to pick enough so I can eat some, and then the rest I'm going to sell. If that's your motive, your intention, then that's wrong. Even if you don't sell it the same day, the Shabbat day, preparing it to sell the next day, that's still work. You're doing work. You're preparing to sell, even if it's not on the same day. You get what I'm saying? If you pick it to eat, just to eat, not to sell, just to eat or to give out, to give away for free, fine. But if you're picking it to sell, to make money, to make a profit, that's work. You're working then. That's work. So I know, persons will try to use their heads to say, all right, then I'm going to do this, I'm going to pick that, and I'm going to get enough, and I'm going to eat. Then it'll be like, oh, I'm satisfied. I can't eat anymore. So I'm just going to sell this the next day. No, you cannot do so. It's best to just give it away. So make sure you get enough for yourself and for your family. This is what was said during the Pasach with the lamb. When Yahuwah gave the command, he said everyone should take a male lamb, a male goat, the food, the amount that is necessary for their families, and whatever is left over, what they do with it. They burn it. They get rid of it. Yahuwah didn't say to sell it. So think of it as the same thing as well. If you're going to get these fruits, you get enough to last you for that time period. You don't go and get 5 days worth of fruits. You get what I'm saying? That's still working, because you're going to need baskets. You're going to need, the camels to assist you or whatever. So you don't go pick all that stuff. You just leave. Just wait until the Shabbat is over. It's that simple. All you got to do is just wait. Don't think about work. Don't think about money on the Shabbat. Just give Yahuwah that day. And when the Shabbat is over, then you can go and pick it to sell for the next day. It's that simple. Just wait. Don't be greedy. Don't be all about money. Don't be all about yourself. Don't be all about what you think, what you want to do, what you think is right. Barak Yahuwah. Give that day to Yahuwah. That day is for Yahuwah. It's not for yourself. It's not for your own ways, your pleasures, whatever the case. It is for Yahuwah. Yahuwah has given us 6 days, and 1 day out of the week, He requires that time, that attention, and we should be able to give Him our all on this 1 day. Put aside everything. We know we have to take care of the major necessities like eating and, drinking waters, quenching the thirst, stuff like that, but you know what I'm trying to say. So let's continue to read. Now, he said unto them, have you not read what David or Dawood did when he was hungry? And they that were with him, how he entered into the house of Yahuwah and did eat the showbread of Yahuwah, which was not right for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests? Or have you not read in the Torah how that on the Shabbat the priests in the temple profane the Shabbat and are blameless? But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. But if you had known what this means, I will have asad, mercy, loving compassion, kindness upon you, and not sacrifice. You would not have condemned the guiltless. For the son of Adam, the son of man, is Adon or Adonai, master even of the Shabbat. And when he was departed from there, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man which had his hand withered. So you see, the Pharisees are like those today, the Seventh-day Adventists. I tell you, oh, you can't use your microwave, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, I've even heard some persons say you can't even turn the light on in your house. You can't even turn on any light whatsoever in your home. Man, I'm telling you, the things I hear, honestly, if I didn't read and study the scriptures for myself, it will be so confusing, it will be so burdensome that I will probably just walk away from this. This is why you got to study to show yourself approved unto Yah. I've even heard some to say, don't even take a shower on the Shabbat. Don't even brush your teeth on the Shabbat and stuff like that. The things I hear are so silly. And then, even with the energy part, the consummation of the power, then it explains more why you don't really hear instruments being used in Seventh-day Adventist assemblies. You more just hear an organ. You don't hear instruments because they're looking at the conception of using a light, using electricity, and all that stuff. I don't know about those in the States, but here in Jamaica, I've always wondered, why is it so quiet? Why is there no instruments being used? Like, the guitars being played, the keyboards being played and used, and drums and all the stuff, microphones, speakers. And now I understand why. Because they see that as work. They see that as doing work, not giving esteem unto Yahuwah. So that means then we should make melodies then with our mouths, if that's work, because that's what you're doing with the keys or the instruments. You're making melodies. So if that's the case, then don't say anything, don't speak, don't get out of bed then, because if they're going to tell you not to turn the light on, not to have a shower, not to brush your teeth, then don't get out of bed. And remember, you got to travel to these assemblies, so don't drive a car, walk. And again, you can't walk that far, so don't go anywhere. So just stay in bed and lie down. Like, really? That's what you should be saying. If you're going to say we can't do all this stuff, then might as well I don't get out of bed. I stay in bed all day. You get what I'm saying? They have some very, very stupid and silly instructions. And these today are the modern day Pharisees and Sadducees, or as I like to call them, far to see and sad to see. That's what I like to call them. So anyways, he left them, and behold, in verse 10, And behold, there was a man which his hand had withered. And they asked him, saying, is it right? Is it okay to heal on the Shabbat? That they might accuse him. Because remember, they were trying to accuse him of different things. They wanted him to break one of the Torah so they could find him guilty and punish him. All along, that's what they wanted to do. He did do something which they thought was wrong, but we know it's not wrong. Verse 11, and I'll explain it in another video. Verse 11, and he said unto them, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Shabbat, will he not lay hold of it and lift it out? You have one sheep, and it falls into a hole or a ditch. You're not going to go and try to rescue that sheep? How much then is a man's life better than a sheep? Wherefore it is right, okay, to do well on the Shabbat. So you see, the Pharisees were so foolish that there's a lot of things that they saw as wrong. This is wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. This is wrong. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do this. Look at it today in religion. Get what I'm saying? It's the same thing. And it's not just with Seventh-day Adventists that I see this nonsense with. It's even those that I said who claim to be in the truth that teach and promote this nonsense. And I'm not talking about, the followers. I'm talking about those so-called leaders and teachers. Aiming at the leaders and teachers who claim to be hearing from Yahuwah, placing a burden on Yah's people when they're not hearing from Yahuwah. They are the modern day Pharisees and Sadducees. These so-called leaders, teachers, Moray, shepherds, and all that stuff today are the new age Pharisees and Sadducees, teaching Yah's people false doctrine. Because if they were hearing from Yahuwah, then they would understand his laws, his instructions, rather, his commands, his statutes. Once you have that relationship with him, it will become easy. And I know for some persons, this has been a bother to you because you're like, man, this is challenging. This is difficult. Because, think about it. You're not able to eat warm meals on the Shabbat. The food is already prepared. It's not like you're going to cook the food. It's not like you're going to spend hours to heat the food. You got a microwave or whatever, or you got a frying pot, and you put the food in and you just put a little heat on it. It's not like it's going to take hours. It's going to take just a couple of minutes to get that food heated, defrost or whatever. And you're like, man, I got to eat the school food. You get what I'm saying? This is what they did to people. I've known persons who have told me this. And it's quite sad because of these false leaders that are out here. Especially those who don't even know his name. Persons who don't even know his name should not be in a position of leadership or influence over Yah's people. That's one of the basic things that I look at and I look out for. If you don't even know his name, you should not be a teacher or a leader, because that's the first thing all leaders knew. His name. Adam go all the way up to the apostles. They all knew his name. It's like going on a date with someone or building a friendship with someone. What are you going to know first? You're going to know the person's name. So that's another key thing to note and to look at Yah's people. If they don't even know Yah's name, if they're still comparing Yahuwah to God and the Lord and JC and all this nonsense, that's a sign, that's a red flag for you to step back, to step away. Because if they claim to be in the truth for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and still don't know his name, then what are they? Who are they really listening to? Who's really influencing them? Because it could not be Yahuwah. Look at Marsha. Look at what Marsha did. Marsha got the instructions from Yahuwah, the command from Yahuwah to go to his people. And what did Marsha ask? What did Marsha say or do? He asked Yahuwah, but when the people shall ask me, because they're going to ask, they want to make sure, who are you talking about? Because remember, there's a lot of mighty ones. There's a lot of demons, idols, different things and stuff that people serve and worship. So they want to know exactly which one are you talking about. If I just come and says, the mighty one, came and told me to tell you this. Who? It could be Nimrod that you're talking. It could be Hashatan. It could be this demon, that demon. It could be the creator. I don't know. If you just come and say, the Lord, the master told me. You get what I'm saying? What is his name? They all had names. Every single one of them all had names. Yes, they have titles, but some of the titles are very similar. So I want to know his name. So Marsha asks Moses, when I say Marsha, I'm talking about Moses. Moses asks for the name to tell the people. Yahuwah gave him the name, his name, to tell the people. So if you are under a leader, a teacher, a Mori, a prophet, prophetess, or whatever, and they don't know the simplest thing to learn and know is his name, because that's the first thing that I learned, and that's what led me away from religion. Because I saw that they weren't worshiping Yahuwah. They weren't worshiping the creator of heaven and earth in religion. They're worshiping the devil. Because his name is not JC, his name is not God or the Lord and not nonsense. His name is Yahuwah, Yahusha. And he keeps the commands. This Torah is not done away with. The lawless one is the one that promotes the Torah. The law is done away with, not Yahuwah. So those in religion are following the anti-Messiah, the false one. So that's the first thing that I found out. His name. First thing, his name. And he confirmed it to me. So if you have some leader boasting and beating up their chest saying, oh, they have been in the truth for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or 50 years, 17 years, and still don't know his name, they should not be over you as a leader, as a shepherd. Barak Yahuwah, because Yah has not sent them. Barak Yahuwah. So it's okay to do well, to do right on the Shabbat Yom. It's okay. It's okay to look after the necessities of life on the Shabbat Yom. It's okay. So I wanted to break this down for you guys so you can truly understand regarding fire, regarding eating and picking fruits on this day, Barak Yahuwah. Now let's jump over to Jubilees real quick before we head out. Book of Jubilees. And we're going to the very last chapter, chapter 50. We're going to start from verse 6. And listen to this, everyone. You know what? Before we even read Jubilees, we even read this, let's go to YAHUAH'S 23, just to confirm it for you guys. No, the Shabbat day is one of the 7 feast days. The Shabbat day is one of the 7 feast days. I'm going to do a video to break down first fruits and Pentecost, because we misunderstood first fruits and we misunderstood the 7 feast days, because majority of us, believe that the first of the feast days is this right here, the Pasah. Majority of us believe the first one of the feast days is the Pasah. So we start the count here at 1. But that's not the case. First feast day is right here. Now, Yahuwah says, speak unto the children of unto Yasharal. He's speaking to Marsha, speak unto the children of Yasharal, and say unto them, concerning the feast of Yahuwah, which you shall proclaim to be Kadash, to be a Kadash assemblies. Even these are my feasts, because you always have assembly gathering on the feast days. That's why every Shabbat they gathered. Every feast day you gather. It's not about you. It's not about staying by yourself and all that stuff. It's about Yahuwah, coming together as a family, as a body, praising Yahuwah. Now, verse 6 says, let me highlight it. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Shabbat of rest. A Kadash assembly, a Kadash assembly. You shall do no work therein. It is the Shabbat of Yahuwah in all your dwelling. So you see, it's one of the feast days, and you go down to the Pasah, and it tells you as well how long. It tells you about the Pasah, what time, which month, what day of the month. Then it tells you about Matzah, tells you about having a Kadash assembly as well. So now do you see why Moses, why Yahusha, why the apostles, why they all gathered, had assembly on the Shabbat day, whether in a temple or out in the field on a mountainside. If you notice, sometimes Yahusha will be on a mountain hill having, assembly, or by the seaside. He would always do this stuff. This is why, because this is the command and the instruction of Yahuwah to have Kadash assembly. So the Shabbat is one of the 7 feast days where we feast and rejoice and praise and esteem the name of Yahuwah. That's what you do at feasting. Feast. You have a feast. You eat. You be full. You be merry. Now, let's jump to Jubilees, chapter 50, and read from verse 6. No, behold, the commands regarding the Shabbat, I have written them down for you, and all the judgments of its Torah. 6 days shall you labor, but on the 7th day is the Shabbat of Yahuwah Alahekam. In it you shall do no manner of work, you and your sons and your male servants. See, your male servants and all your maid servants and all your cattle, and even the stranger also who is with you. So even your animals don't work, even your servants don't work. It's closed for business that day. So even if you have a business and establishment, you shut down. You don't say, all right, I'm going to take the day off and I'm going to have my staff continue to work. Nah, you shut the business down on the Shabbat. Once that's your establishment, that's your business. Once you own it, I'm talking about if you own it, because if you don't own it, you're not the manager, you're just one of the managers or whatever, then you can't shut down someone else's business. You get what I'm saying? But if it's your establishment, your business, you close it down because you're the head, you're the owner, you have all right to. So you would close it down. So none of your employees would work that day. But if you're just a manager for someone else, you can't shut down someone else's business. You can just make sure you don't work on a Shabbat day. And you can explain why to others. And if they choose not to, then Barak Yahuwah. If they choose they want to work, that's their choice. That's not your establishment. So I just want to make that clear. But once you're the owner, you're in control, you shut it down. And this is not my words. I'm glad it's on the screen because I don't want no one to go back and say that this is what Azari said. Because people try to do that. People have tried to do that. And to say, I'm just speaking my words or I'm being self-righteous or whatever. There's no scripture, yada, yada. So right here, you shall do no manner of work. You and your sons and your male servants and your maid servants and all your cattle and the sojourner that also is with you. Barak Yahuwah. No, and the man that does any work on it shall die. And this is where trust and reliance comes in. We got to trust Yahuwah. We got to put that trust in Yahuwah, that faith and munah in Yahuwah. Everyone is so concerned about work, so worried, so caught up about money, about buying clothing, Salaki Yahuwah, getting garments, food to eat, house to put over their head. So we are so caught up by Hashatan and the system. Look at the world today. All they do is work, because they want to make that money. They want to bring in that bucks. And this is where you got to trust Yahuwah, because there's going to come a time where you cannot bring in money. The only way to bring in money, if you show obedience, submission to the beast, there's going to come a time where you can't buy or sell because you don't show obedience you don't bear the mark of the beast, disobedience. Keeping his deals and his instructions. Yeshai broke that down in one of his videos. The mark of Yahuwah versus the mark of Hashatan. Mark of Yahuwah is what? Obedience, the Shabbat. The mark of the beast, disobedience. Sunday, first day of the week. Disobedience in general, disobedience. Yahuwah's mark, obedience. So there's going to come a time, everyone, where they're going to go to Bitcoins. And when they do, I'm done. Because Bitcoins is evil, it's wicked, and you need to stay away from Bitcoins and Bitcoins investment. Do you know what Bitcoins is used for? Bitcoin's cryptocurrency? It's used on the dark web to pay for children in human trafficking, in sex workers, selling children to go and become prostitutes and porn stars and all that stuff to buy illegal weapon and all stuff. That's what Bitcoin is used for, and that's what you're supporting. Go do the research for yourself. Go check it out. Go research Bitcoins. Go research cryptocurrency. Do the research. Yahuwah says, study to show yourself approved unto him. Do you think he's just talking about studying his word? Study the enemy. He says, be wise as serpent, harmless as dove. In order for you to be wise as a serpent, you got to study the serpent. Yahuwah says, be not ignorant of the enemy's devices. So he's not just talking about reading his Bible, our scriptures, our word alone. He says you need to go study their works, their doings, their devices. Go look up Bitcoin. Bitcoin is something that you should not, and I repeat, not participate, invest in. And when they go to cryptocurrency Bitcoin, I'm done. Yahuwah will provide in the field. He will give us fruits and all that we need from the fields, from the trees, because I will be done. So you need to make sure whom your source is. Your job is not your source. Your business is not your source. Your field is not your source. Yahuwah is your source. Because you could plant even 50 vineyards. You could have even 30 businesses, 20 businesses, whatever. Yahuwah can shut it all down. Look at Job. Look how much things Job had. And Yahuwah simply removed them. He allowed Ashatan to take them all. And what did Job said? What did Ayub said, everyone? Yahuwah give it, Yahuwah take it away. Baruch be the name of Yahuwah. Even his wife wanted him to quit because she was tired of seeing him in so much pain and suffering. Shall we only barak Yahuwah for the right things, and when the evil happened to us, we do nothing? How ungrateful we are. So we only want to thank Yahuwah when things are going our way. We only want to thank Yahuwah when he gives us stuff. But what about when he doesn't? This is when Yahuwah is really going to test you. It's like having wealth, having money, and you got a lot of friends and people around you. But you don't know who is real, who really loves you for who you are. You got to test them. Stop giving them things. Hold back, and then you're going to see who's still with you. Make it seem as if you're broke and you're on your face, and then you will see who's going to stand by your side. Whoever still is standing with you, support you, even when you're broke, that one is real. But the ones that walk away, they were only around you for your money. It's the same thing with Yahuwah. Some people are only serving Yahuwah because of what he does for them. And as soon as they get what they want, they turn their backs on Yahuwah. And I've seen that happen since I've been in this truth. I've seen that happen. I've seen persons, would go all out, searching Yahuwah, seeking, crying out, having their heart made vows and all that stuff. And as soon as they get what they want, or Yahuwah fix their situations, their problems, they turn their back on Yahuwah. They go back into the world. I've seen it so much times before. So this is where, you're going to have that reliance, that trust in Yahuwah to make a stand and say, nah, I'm not going to defile myself. I'm not going to defile, YAHUAH'S day by working on it and all that stuff. I'm going to take this day off. I'm going to let this employer know I will not. And you got to be determined. You got to be bold about this. You got to stand your ground. If you show any form of shakiness or weakness, then they will walk all over you. You cannot have any fear when you're approaching the enemy. I will not work on the Shabbat Yom. So it's either you give me the day off or I will not work for you. You got to be that bold. You got to make that stand. Because if you don't, then they're just going to walk over you and they're just going to have you to do all kinds of things to defile yourself and defile, these feast days or YAHUAH'S days. But mostly it's defiling you. You're the one that's going to be punished. You're the one that's going to be found guilty. Especially because you know. Some of them don't. Some of these employers, they don't know. You know, so you will be beaten with much stripes. They that don't know will be beaten, but fewer stripes. So you will get a greater punishment than they. because you know and you chose not to. No, it says, whosoever desecrates that day, whosoever lies with his woman, that's another thing as well. You're not supposed to have intercourse, intimacy with your spouse on your Shabbat day as a part of pleasure as well. I mean, come on, everyone. It's just one day. You must can go one day without having intercourse. Remember, Paul talked about this. That if you're going to refrain from sex, it must be because of fasting or, like the feast days or something towards Yahuwah. And then after that, after you're finished, then you come back to each other so that you don't leave temptations for the devil, any ways for the devil to come in and to tempt you. So Paul talked about this as well. So you must can give a day or two to Yahuwah. And from your woman, we're just going to stay apart and not have any intercourse. We're going to seek Yahuwah. If you can't do that, then that means you love pleasure more than you love Yahuwah. You love that intimacy more than you love Yahuwah. You love that woman or that husband more than you love Yahuwah. If you can't do this, that's what you're saying. Or if you're being dragged into this, then that means there's a spirit of influence, of temptation that's around you, that's tempting you to do this. And you need to pray, you need to ask Yahuwah to rebuke that spirit, that demon that's causing you to want to do this on the Shabbat Yom. Barak Yahuwah. Or whosoever says he will do something on it, that he will go out on a journey thereon in regards to any buying or selling. See what I'm saying? With about picking more than you need for the Shabbat, then to say after, I'm going to sell it the next day. So you can go on a journey, because remember, the people had to leave from their homes to head to the temples or to wherever it was that the apostles or Yahusha or their leaders were congregating, were fellowshipping. They had to leave. So nothing is wrong in doing so. Well, if you're heading out to go and do buying and selling to make money, then that's wrong. That is wrong. And whosoever draws water thereon, which he had not prepared for himself on the 6th day, you should make this preparation the day before. That's why he gives you that prep day. He gives you that prep day to make the necessary preparations for the Shabbat Yom. Whosoever takes up any burden to carry it out of his tent or out of his house shall die. You shall do no work whatsoever on the Shabbat, except what you have prepared for yourselves on the 6th day, so as to eat and to drink and rest and guard the Shabbat from all work on that day, and to Barak Yahuwah, respect Yahuwah Alaikam, who has given you a day of rest and a Kadash day and a day of Kadash kingdom for all Yasharal. Is this day among theirs forever. So you see, you shall do no work whatsoever except that which you have prepared already. You see, this is why they hid the book like Jubilees, Enoch, and all these other books from us, because it fills in the blank. It fills in the other parts that we know are missing. It gives more details. So this is why they told us in religion to stay away from these books, because they don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to get all the pieces of the puzzles. They don't want you to get the clues, the evidence. A person who is wrong, who is guilty, will keep you away from whatever proof, evidence, anything that leads to their conviction. They will keep you away from it. But the ones who are innocent will dig it up, will try to find it to prove their innocence or to prove that this is true. So those who are guilty will lead you away from it and will keep it away from you. They will hide it from you. Because if you should have these pieces of evidence, then you will see the big picture. Then you will see that they have lied to you. So this is why they kept this book away, because they didn't want us to know. Some of you might be the first that you have ever heard this or seen this. You didn't even know this was not supposed to be done on the Shabbat, like laying with your husband or your wife. And there's more as well. You didn't know this. Why? Because we weren't taught. It was hidden from us. For great, verse 10 we're at, for great is the honor which Yahuwah has given to Yasharal, that they should eat and drink and be satisfied on this feast day. It's not a day of fasting. I've come across persons who thought they could fast on the Shabbat, on the Shabbat day. It's not a day of fasting. You would, if you're doing a long period fast, you would skip this Shabbat day. You would need to skip the Shabbat day. And then also, if you're doing a long period fasting, you cannot do a period of fasting during any of the feast days as well, because it's a feast day to eat, to drink, to be merry, to be joyful. Notice the fasting for atonement, the day of atonement, or Yom Kippur. Notice the fast is the day before, not on the day. It's the day before. And then once the day is done, once the fasting is done, you go into the next day and you eat. Notice you have never seen anyone in scripture fasted on feast days. Have you ever wondered why? This is why, because it's a feast. Go look at what feast mean. Go look what feasting means. What do people do when they say they're having a feasting? It's like having a celebration, a big party. And what happens at party? You got a lot of food, you got a lot of wine, you got a lot of celebration. It's like a banquet. There's food. Food must be there. So it's the same thing with feast. Food must be there. So this is why you need to seek Yahuwah when you do stuff, not lean to your own understanding, because there's a way that seems right unto a man, but the end thereof leads to death. Study to show yourself approved unto Yah. So you do not fast on the Shabbat days or any other feast days of Yahuwah, except for the day that is designated to fast during the period of Yom Kippur, Yom Kippurim, the day of Atun. The day before that day is okay to fast because it's not the feast day. The next day is the feast day. So for those who didn't know, now you know. Barak Yahuwah. So Yahuwah has given us these days to eat, to drink, and to be joyful, to celebrate. Look at the day of Passover, when Yahuwah was delivering our ancestors from Mitzrayim. Weren't they eating? Weren't they drinking? Weren't they celebrating when death passed through? When all the firstborns of the Egyptians were being killed? They were rejoicing, they were feasting, they were eating. Look at Xmas. What do they do on Xmas Day? There's a lot of eating, drinking, and celebrating that goes on Xmas Day. People go from house to house, bringing food here, bringing food there. Or some people just go house to house, eating, drinking, eating, drinking, eating, drinking. Look at most of these feast days. That's what they do on these feast days. On their pagan feast days, they have eating and drinking. It's the same thing with YAHUAH'S days. You don't see people fast on Xmas Day. Persons are full and satisfied on Xmas Day and any other pagan day. Your birthday as well. You eat, you drink cake and all that stuff when they do birthday parties. Their birthday parties, they do the same thing. When we were in the world and we were doing birthdays, we did the same thing. We had big cakes, we had food, we had drinks and all the stuff. I've never seen anyone say, oh, today's Xmas, I'm going to fast. Or today's EASTER, I'm going to fast. Or today is birthday celebration, I'm going to fast. I've never seen them done that. They all eat, they all drink. Where do you think they got that idea from? The 7 feast days of Yahuwah. And the Shabbat, as you can see, we do this every single week. We do this every single week. This celebration takes place. Every week, this celebration takes place. And you still want more than that. You still need to go celebrate birthdays. You still need to celebrate Xmas and all this other stuff. You have a celebration every single week. What more do you need? It's all about greed. It's all about pride. Hashatan has blinded our eyes with greed and selfish desires and thinking our own way, not humbling ourselves, putting fear on us. When we try to think outside the box, he puts fear on us and make us become fearful. So we are supposed to eat, drink, and be satisfied on this day. No. Yahuwah says we're supposed to rest thereon from all our labor, all our work, which belongs to the labor of the children of mankind, except burning frankincense and bringing oblations and sacrifices before Yahuwah for days and for Shabbat. So do you see? Yahuwah even allowed them to light, to kindle a fire, to burn frankincense and oblations and make sacrifices on the Shabbat days and feast days. So you see what it means about kindling a fire, what Yahuwah is talking about? You got to be careful. You got to have that line upon line, precept upon precept. If you don't, and you just read one verse, then you're just going to take it as it is. Let's just say there was no other scripture, no other verses, no other chapters in the whole of Yahuwah's scriptures, in the whole of the Bible, nothing else but Exodus 35, verse 3. That's it. Don't kindle any fire on the Shabbat. Nothing else. No other scriptures, no other books, nothing. Just that. That's the only verse. Right? Then I would not kindle any fire whatsoever. No heat, no flames, no nothing. But it's not. There are verses, there are other precepts, there are other evidence, other pieces of the puzzles. You cannot just get one piece of the puzzle and solve the whole puzzle. You need the other missing pieces. And this is how YAH's word is. It's a whole big puzzle that you got to get different pieces of. Like some of the instructions, it's a puzzle. And you got to get different pieces from different verses, from different chapters, from different books. You got to find different pieces of that puzzle and bring it all together. Then you'll see the picture. Then you'll solve the puzzle. Barak Yahuwah. Now, it says, this work alone shall be done on the Shabbat in the sanctuary or the temple of Yahuwah. I think this one is the Mighty One's name. I don't remember, but I think it is. Sorry. I'll show you later on who this one is. So this one is the name of a Mighty One. So Salahi Yahuwah. It derives from the name of a Mighty One. I'll show you later on in Demons in Disguise. In the temple of Yahuwah Alahekam, that they might atone for Yasharal with sacrifice continually from day to day, for a memorial well-pleasing before Yahuwah, and that he might receive them always from day to day according as you have been commanded. And every man who does any work thereon, or goes on a journey, or till his farm, whether in his house or in any other place, and whosoever lights a fire, or rides on any beast, or travels by ship on the sea, whosoever strikes or kills anything, or slaughters a beast or a bird, or whosoever catches any animal, or a bird, or a fish, or whosoever fasts, or makes war on the Shabbats, or Shabbaots, the man or that person, because I don't want you to think it's just man that he's talking about, that woman can do this. I want to make that clear, because I've heard, not really a lot, but a few females will use this as an excuse to say, well, the scripture didn't say any man or woman, it just simply said any man who did this. So that's not talking about me. So that has nothing to do with me. It did not say woman, it said man. When it says the man, it's just saying mankind in general. It's speaking in general, and a man or woman or person. Because remember, man, woman. Where is woman taken from? Man. So it's still talking to you as a female, as a woman. So don't think you have any right to exclude yourself from this. And if that's the case, then when Yahuwah says he shall barak the man, then you can exclude yourself from the barak or the baraka of Yahuwah as well. Then if that's all you're going to think, then exclude yourself from the baraka, from the gifts of Yahuwah. You got to be smart. You see what I'm talking about? Excuses. Always having some form of excuse which makes no sense whatsoever. Any person, the person who does this, does any of these things on the Shabbat, shall die, so that the children of Yasharal shall observe the Shabbat or Shabbaots, the Shabbats, according to the commands regarding the Shabbats of the land, as it is written in the tablets, which he gave into my hands, that I should write out for you the Torah, or the Torah of the seasons, And the season according to the division of their days. Herewith is completed the account of the division of days. Ruma, Mu, Yahuwah. So there you have it, folks. This is the additional information that we have missed, that we have locked regarding the Shabbat. And I know for some of you, you did not know these things and you are doing these things, but you did not know. All you got to do is simply repent. Humble yourself, ask Yahuwah for forgiveness, and repent. Shub is the Abrit word. Shub. S-H-U-B. It's the Shin Wa Beit. Shub. And that means to turn back. To turn back to Yahuwah. Go back to Yahuwah. To turn. So all you got to do is simply ask Yahuwah for forgiveness and turn back. Not do this anymore. You didn't know, now you know, don't do it anymore. It's just like when we were in the world, we did things that we didn't know was wrong. Did Yahuwah killed us? No, he gave us another chance. You being alive right now is Yahuwah giving you a chance to make the right decisions, do the right thing. So do the right thing now and simply humble yourself and change these ways. You didn't know, now you know. There are certain stuff that I didn't know as well, and Yahuwah showed me. And I simply asked Yahuwah for forgiveness and change, repented. Just like how we didn't know the book of Esther was false, and we would teach from it, or Joshua, and we would teach from these books. Yahuwah showed me, I repented. And I shared that as well with everyone else. I didn't continue to, I didn't kept it to myself or whatever. I didn't say, all right, well, you know what? It's already gone bad. Everyone believes in the book, so I'm just going to do it anyways, So lucky Yahuwah, but it's already gone bad. What can I do about it? I'm just going to continue anyways. Everyone already believes in Esther and Joshua, so I'm just going to continue. No, you got to do better. You got to change. So you didn't know, now you know, family. So this is key. These are key reasons why you need to study to show yourself approved unto Yah. Any leader, shepherd, prophet, or prophetess, or whatever they call themselves, moray or whatever, they're not teaching you these things, showing you these things. Again, as I said, they don't even know his name. They're still calling him JC, God, and all this nonsense. And that's a clear red flag for you to show you that they're not hearing from Yahuwah. Because Yahuwah and JC are not the same. That's not his name. Some people will even tell you, oh, it's not important. Names are not important. Any person that does that as well is not of Yahuwah. I don't care who they are. I don't care who they are. I'm seeing this nonsense a lot, especially from people who have very strong influence. Those who have YouTube channels that do teachings on YouTube. Those who are artists, so-called artists of Yahuwah, promoting these nonsense on their Instagrams and their nonsense. You need to step away from these people because they are leading you astray. But the choice is yours. I'm not here to force anyone to do better, to change. That decision is yours. It's the same thing with Yahuwah. Yahuwah gave us a choice, freedom of choice, and gave you the ability to choose. He didn't force you to serve him. He didn't force them then, and he's not going to force you now. So it's your choice if you want to sit under a leader that don't even know his name, that still tells you it's okay to call him JC. That's going to be your choice. Go do the research for yourself. Go watch Yeshai's video about the demon of God and go look at the name. Go dig it up for yourself and look at what they're saying, what they're telling you. They're telling you it's okay to call them by a disgusting mighty one's name. Do you know the Hebrew word for horse? The Hebrew word for horse is sus. S-U-U-S. So if you should say horse in Hebrew, it will be he or ha. It will be ha, sus. Some put it as he, sus. Because you use the he, the letter he, you use the he. The he by itself means di, ha, di. So Jesus or Jesus is still the same thing. Jesus. You're saying the horse. And go read about what Yahuwah talks about in Psalms. So he says the horse is a vain thing. You cannot rely on his strength. Yahuwah was already talking about JC, this mighty one, before he came into the picture. This false image, this false name. The horse is a vain thing and you cannot rely on his strength. In Hebrew, that would be Jesus, or Jesus is a vain thing. Go do the research. So again, who do you choose to believe? Who do you choose to serve? Who do you choose to follow? Do you choose to follow man, or do you choose to follow Yahuwah? Are you going to make the same mistakes that you did in religion when you blindly follow these leaders, these so-called leaders and pastors that were telling us, oh, the law is done away with, but you still need to pay tithes. The Shabbat day is done away with, or we don't know when it is, but we're going to worship on Sunday. Are you going to still make that mistake because you're in the truth now and the person says, yeah? Yahuwah said this as well in the book of Matthew, that there shall come some that will say, Master, Master, didn't I cast out devils in your name and did this in your name? And he's going to say to them, get away from me. I know you not. We had no relationship. I don't know you. Not because you know my name and use my name doesn't mean I knew you. Remember the 7 sons of Sceva. They used the name of Yahusha to try and cast out the demon. The 7 sons of Sceva were exorcists. And they went to a demon, one who was possessed, and they said, we hereby command you or cast you to come out in the name of Yahusha, whom Sha'al, Paul speaks about. The demon said, Yahusha I know, Paul I know, but who are you? They didn't recognize, they recognized that they did not have a relationship with the Most High. So they were not afraid. They had no power. They had no authority. All they had was the name. They had no faith in the Most High. And if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can do a lot. If you have no faith, then you have nothing. Nothing. Obedience and faith are the keys to Yahuwah's kingdom. Obedience and faith works together. They both work together. It's key. If you don't have these things, you have nothing. It doesn't matter how much sacrifices you make. Yahuwah says obedience is better than sacrifices. It doesn't matter how much sacrifices you make. It doesn't matter how much money you give to the poor or whatever it is that you do. If you are not obedient and faithful, trustworthy unto him, put your trust, your reliance, your assurance in him, you have nothing. You're just living life like the rest of the people in this world. So please, go research, study to show yourself approved unto Yah. Do not let fear keeping you in the surrounding of those who are wolves that are in sheep clothing. Do not let fear keep you from walking away. Yahuwah says, have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. Expose them. Don't let fear trick you into thinking that, oh, you should not do this or you should not do that. You should not judge them or judge or whatever, be judgeful and all this nonsense that they will say to you. You cannot escape that. You have to judge. Every single day you judge. When you tell someone the truth, you are judging. We do this all the time whenever we speak against religion or JC's name. You are judging. You are telling others who believe in this name that they are wrong. They are worshiping and using a false name. So don't let anyone deceive you, people. Do not let fear. Hashatan is using fear a lot in these last days. There's going to be a battle between fear and faith. F versus F. Fear and faith. There's going to be a battle between fear and faith, or amunah, belief, in these last periods. And we're going to see who really trusts Yahuwah. When you are out of a job, because what? They're going to tell you, oh, you need to work on the Shabbat day. Or they're going to tell you need to do this or you need to do that. We're going to see who really puts their trust in Yahuwah. When they tell you COVID is on the rise again and you need to take that vaccine, or they tell you this, we're going to really see who trusts Yahuwah, who will lay down their lives for Yahuwah, because we're not here to stay. This is a temporary place. So don't ever think that we are here forever. This is permanent. Store your treasures in the Shamayim with Yahuwah, because this is where those pilgrims passing through. If my time should come today, then so be it. It's my time. I would know that I have accomplished my job, my assignment. So take me, put me to sleep, put me in the bosom, in the arms and bosom of Abraham, my forefather. You need to make a stand, everyone, because right now, that's what they're doing. They're testing. COVID was just a simple test. And a lot of things before COVID were tests to see if you will compromise your belief. Cannot have one foot in, one foot. Oh, you got to be all in this truth, all in. Barak Yahuwah. So, 2 Timothy 2, verse 15 reads, study to show yourself approved unto Yah, a workman that needed not to be ashamed, but rightly handling, dividing the word of truth. Hallelujah. Barak Yahuwah, who is Yahusha. Rumamu Yahuwah. So these are the additional instructions regarding the Shabbat. Rumamu Yahuwah. As I said, there will be other videos coming regarding, especially the feast day, because, the Shabbat, as I said, is one of the 7 feast days. And, myself, I didn't know that until, Yahuwah showed me, because when I did the count, I found out there was more than, 7 feast days, especially when we counted Purim and we counted Hanukkah and the Shabbat and other feasts and the different feasts, I got to about 9 or 10. I'm like, wait. It's only a 7 candlestand menorah. So how is it 9? How is it 10? How is it this amount? How is it not 7? And that's when Yahuwah broke it down. We already know Esther is false. Esther is out of the way. That's false. But there's more to it. So again, as I said, the Shabbat is one of the 7 feast days. So in another video, I'll break that down. I'll explain the Shabbat and I'll explain the feast of first fruits as well to you guys so you can understand a lot more. Barak Yahuwah. So, all esteemed to Yahuwah, to that to everyone that has supported, that has liked, subscribed, shared, whatever contribution, assistance that you have given, us, this ministry. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Ruma Mo Yahuwah, continue to fight the right fight in Yahuwah, stand for righteousness. Do not compromise. Do your part, because we need to reach these lost sheep. We need to reach these lost souls. Hallelujah. So even though I asked Yahuwah to Barakata U Shamar Ata Umamu Yahuwah. Have a great day, Kadashim, and Shabbat Shalom, Barak Yahuwah.